Art Gottfried, and I'm here with my co-host Frank Santopadre, and this is Gilbert and Frank's Amazing Colossal Obsession.
It is.
Colossal Obsession.
And I brought you a guest this week.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Finally, you do something.
I brought you a man after your own heart, a fellow lover of nostalgia and old movies and old TV, and he collects stuff.
I was looking through it, the stuff you sent me that he has.
He is the master collector, James Comisar.
Hi, guys. Hey, Gilbert.
Hi,
Frank.
James.
What's going on?
Thanks for doing this,
You
man.
have Maxwell Smart's shoe phone.
Among other things.
Oh, it just starts there. I have the cone of silence. I have his ice cream cone phone, cheese sandwich phone, bar of soap phone. It just goes on and on.
Incredible.
Hey, Gilbert, what was your favorite show growing up?
Oh, God. Well, Get Smart was one of those. The Fugitive.
You like the Twilight Zone?
Twilight Zone, of course. Loved the Twilight Zone.
Bilko.
Car 54, Where Are You?
We're Andy Griffith Show, guys. We know you have Barney Fife's hat, don't you? Or you did.
I have Andy and Barney's badges, uniforms, and hats. For my money, Andy Griffith Show, best classic TV show of all time. What do you think about that?
Wow, I almost can't disagree with you. It's
a perfect show.
It is a perfect show, especially those the Don Knotts seasons.
Right? On for 5 years, Emmy 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
Do you have the bullet that Don Knott carried around this pocket?
That's right. That was a real prop.
Let me just say this: I'd pay $5,000 for that all day long.
Are you serious?
Absolutely. So you say Get Smart, which is one of the best shows of all time.
Sure.
So if you had the shoe phone from Get Smart, 60 to 80,000 with auction house commission, would be right at 100,000. How many of those do you want, Gilbert?
Oh, geez.
Wow.
I didn't like the show that much.
Yeah, he would. The only thing Gilbert really has, you don't have many collectibles.
No.
You do have the mask. You
I've
have
got
the life
the
mask.
life
He's got life
masks.
masks of Lugosi and Cheney Jr.
And
Wow.
Bela Lugosi.
But he's far too, what's the word? Cheap. To play in your sandbox, James.
Well, when I started in my sandbox, 30 years ago, the studios were throwing this stuff out. It was just a storage problem for them.
Amazing.
And if you went in with a truck and said, yeah, I'll take that stuff, they would just bloody well give it to you. And now, we have pieces in this art market going for upwards of $5 million.
When you started in the 80s, and I heard an interview with you, this market didn't really exist. Not to what it is today. There were some oddball collectors and some people scattered here or there, but there was no real robust collector's market.
I have been credited with starting this TV memorabilia market because I grew up with, Keith Partridge and Hawkeye Pierce. What did I know from Judy Garland or John Wayne? That
Hawkeye
wasn't my
Pierce
generation.
was just here.
Oh, yeah. We just interviewed Alan Alda.
Alan Alda just walked out of the room.
Did he leave anything? Did he leave any robes?
I got his coffee cup here.
I'll take it. So
He said, do you want the tent that we slept in? And I said, no, I don't know what to do with that.
Did you say taint? What did you say?
Tent.
Yes.
But go back. You were credited with starting it.
So I was like in my 20s, and I grew up a fat kid, so no Little League. I came home and watched TV, and these characters, this is going to sound so gay, these characters were like my after-school friends, right? So when I started writing jokes right out of high school.
Yeah,
I'll
tell
you
us about that. Yeah.
But, when I found out these pieces were just being treated poorly, I thought, I gotta do this. This is going to be my mission. And I filled up my hall closet. I filled up my garage. Then I filled up 10 storage units. And here we are today, more TV treasures than even the Smithsonian, by far.
Incredible.
Name just the stuff you have from Wizard of Oz. Right.
So I actually started out as a Wizard of Oz collector. When I
Amazing.
started, I thought, that's my favorite movie. I'm going to buy a few things. So I'll just tell you the best thing I ever had, which is actually the best costume I've ever seen in 30 years. I owned and conserved the Cowardly Lion costume from the Wizard of Oz.
Oh,
It was
man.
It was made out of a real lion. I mean, this was a big, stinky, 60-pound, heavy costume. I was just a kid when I found it. I had to borrow the money. I was taking cash advances off my Diners Club card. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to take this to the L.A. County Museum of Art and have them fix it. And there was a conservator there who I could pay monthly on my credit card. And so the LA County Museum of Art conserved it. It was worth near nothing. And on November 24th of 2014, the Cowardly Lion costume sold for $3.1 million.
Oh, unbelievable. Gilbert, you got to get in this game.
I know.
I mean, that's walking around money for you, Gilbert, but for the rest of us, that's a lot of money.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
So, in the early days, you could buy a Captain Kirk velour tunic from the first season for $200. Nowadays, they're $100,000 plus, and I can just see in the future, where 2, 3, 4 years in the future, those will be $1 million.
What made it explode like that? Was it the internet? Was it Comic-Cons and conventions?
I think that all adds to it. And of course, with these TV shows streaming through our lives 24/7, that doesn't hurt anything. But I think that people have these incredibly strong relationships with TV actors and TV characters, and they almost feel like members of the extent of your extended family. So when you have an opportunity to buy something that they wore or handled, it's like, wow, it's too good to be true. And we have stuff in our marketplace from $5 to $5 million.
Now, is it Spielberg who owns the sled from Citizen Kane? That's what
Absolutely right. Yep, absolutely right, Gilbert. He has it and quite a few other pieces. He is, from what I know, exclusively focused on motion pictures, whereas my love is TV. We cover 70 years of TV. I know you guys like esoteric, getting into the weeds.
We do.
On television. And, my publicist is back here, Jeff
we know
Abraham,
Jeff.
who's also
Hello, Jeff.
He's a scholar on comedy. And so I call him all the time just to ask him if something I'm being offered, does anybody care anymore? So I'll call him and I'll just say 2 words, Ernie Koufax. And he'll say, yeah, you got to get it. And I'm like, does anybody remember? Am I buying something is this a brand or a character that's going to be invisible 5 years from now? So, unfortunately, one has to think in terms of which of these brands
you try to make a living, too. Yeah.
How much would that sled be worth right now?
That's a good question. I would think, I think it's certainly in the $1 million to $2 million range. Citizen Kane is a great film as far as an entertainment, as far as a collectible film, not the sexiest film on earth,
but that item.
And it depends on whether you have the one that was the hero or they made some up out of balsa wood that just burned at the end of the film. So is it an extra one they didn't get around to burning, or is it the one featured in the film? In our art market, that makes all the difference. How is it
so
used?
Even though you were seeking out Wizard of Oz stuff early on in the game, you were not a features guy. You were a TV guy. I know you have a fondness for Sid and Marty Krofft. We had them here, by the way. Have you met Sid and Marty?
Oh my God. Unfortunately, I have met Marty. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, I gotta tell you a Marty story then. So, I'm of that age where I grew up watching Puffin stuff. That was pretty much 69 to 70. And if you grew up my age, that was like your Mickey Mouse. That was the guy. And so Marty called me to his office one day, which was some big estate out here in Hancock Park. And I come in and he gives me a lecture that he wants to sell some of his stuff. And he said, how much do you think it's worth? So he walked me through it, and I go, I don't know, 60,000, 70,000. He goes, I got to get $1 million. And then he tells me.
The Sid and Marty liquidation
And so he
sale.
says to me, oh, my God. So he says to me, he goes, you see that? Hey, kid, you see that filing cabinet? Puffin Stuff's original head used to sit on that file cabinet until my dog got it down and chewed it up. Isn't that a funny story? That's Marty. Oh, my God. Every time I bought from him, a number of times, every single time I bought from him, on the phone in the car on the way over, I'd get a call. Hey, Jimmy, it's Marty. I got to get an extra $5,000 or the deal is off.
He's a hustler.
Right?
He's a great hustler.
I wish when we had them on the podcast that we had them on film too, because one of them would be like happy about everything.
Sid was gleeful.
It was just a joy with all the crowds around. And then he'd go, that wasn't like that at all. You want to hear what really happened?
They're the real Sunshine Boys.
It's the world according to Marty. So I heard from the costume designer on these shows that Sid was the idea guy, and he would come in on Monday morning and say, I want to do a tribute to Soup and Crackers. I want to do a musical tribute. And Marty would say, tits and ass, Sid, tits and ass.
You're such a Sid and Marty Krofft guy. Do you have any props from Pink Lady and Jeff?
Oh, my God. Don't even say it. I would buy it. I mean, I would buy it, and I'd invite you over because we'd be the only two that remember
I heard a story that one of the guys that did the voices for the characters, his father had been shot the night before. and so the guy was, of course, upset, and he wasn't doing as great a job. Your fucking father was shot. And Marty wanted to fire him. And Sid said, but Marty, we can't fire him. His father was just killed. And Marty goes, we didn't shoot him, Sid.
That's Marty. But, man, when he dies, that's going to be some funeral
They're wonderful.
ceremony. I mean, everybody's got a Marty story.
You have more TV stuff than the Smithsonian? Do you still, or you had at one point?
Oh, no, I still have. I have thousands and thousands of these objects.
It's incredible.
From really every era of television. Throw me a show, and I'll tell you what I have.
Well, we were talking about Star Trek. I know you got Star Trek stuff.
Okay, so Star Trek, I probably have 40, 50 costumes. You know, the bridge tunics are amazing, but those visiting guest starring aliens, those were the beautiful costumes they made. They only had the budget to make one for each actor, and if you spilled on it or you got makeup on it, they would just stop filming. It's not now where you back it up 6 times. So some of those are visually beautiful. William Ware Tice was the costume designer, and he created these amazing alien costumes that were sort of sexy, psychedelic versions of what he thought an alien would be, and they're amazing. So Star Trek, if you wanted like a Klingon gun, a Klingon disruptor, that cost you 30 to 50 large. If you wanted Spock's ear tips, 250,000 if it's from the original show. It's really, the issue is, guys, that you have ultra high net worth guys. You have internet billionaires bidding against the top movie makers.
Even celebrities. You know, you have Charlie Sheen buying a World Series baseball for whatever the hell he paid for it a couple of years ago.
And
$4 or $5 million bucks.
Who was it? Was it Nicolas Cage who bought a T-Rex skeleton?
Yeah, let us just say that Nick Cage has a diverse palette for collecting, let's say.
Here's one Gilbert will love, you have Hervé Villechaise's tattoo outfit from Fantasy Island.
Oh, I not only have his outfit, but I have his little Jeep that he would tool around.
Fantastic. Gosh.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, those kinds of pieces are just amazing. At the end of the series, he wanted a raise. They said no, so he wasn't in the final season of the show, but he said, I'm taking home my fucking cart and I'm not coming back. So he took the cart home, and sadly, after he passed away, his girlfriend, I guess, had it all up for sale at Butterfield's in Los Angeles, and I bought everything. I thought, what an incredible performer.
Did she have any idea of what to charge for that?
Well, if you've ever gone to auction, you bring something in and they want to downgrade your expectations immediately. If it's worth $10,000, they're going to say, well, let's put it in at $800 to $1,200 and see what happens. So she was probably told that it was worth little, and it went for more, so she's happy. But, I would say his Island Jeep, that must be $40,000 to $60,000. I would think.
And you were saying about like the outfits. If one was, there's that classic story with the Outer Limits of some actor in this weird alien outfit. I think he tripped and fell, and it ruined the outfit. So they had to change the entire ending because they couldn't fix the outfit again.
That sounds right.
I think they put in a gunshot.
What about my favorite show from when I was a kid, James? Batman. Jeff told me on the phone you got a couple of goodies.
Yeah. Oh, a couple. So that's like the Star Trek and classic Batman. That's the gold standard of television memorabilia. So not too many years ago, the Batmobile sold for $4.6 million. I suspect today it would be
But aren't
closer
there
to
like
$10
10 of
million.
those things that George Barris wound up making?
Well, George Barris was a little bit like Marty Krofft in some ways, but sure it was show used. Sure it was. So there was one hero, and there was sort of a backup, and then that sort of did car shows on the weekend. And for some reason, 30 years later, now there's 6 of them. But I think they're replicas. In our business, it's critical that Adam West's ass was in that seat. So a car show backup is not what fans are going to pay the big money for. But like we'll talk a little bit about this auction I'm doing for Prop Store. So PropStore.com is this interesting company that started in London about 25 years ago. Stephen Lane was the gent, and he had some extra money, and he wanted to buy some original Star Wars memorabilia. But it was like the Wild West back then. You couldn't find something that was bona fide authentic. You didn't know who to go to. You didn't know how much to pay for it. So Stephen Lane started that business 25 years ago, and he's now the go-to guy for Hollywood memorabilia. And they have a company in London as well as Los Angeles. Brandon Allinger runs that company. And so I thought, you know what? I've been doing this 30 years, guys, and I've been waiting for these Hollywood stakeholders to get behind a TV museum. It's like Debbie Reynolds' story. I've done all the hard work. I've done all the heavy lifting. I have all the pieces.
Yeah, you're to be admired for that. You and Debbie Reynolds.
Okay, well, Debbie Reynolds.
I've always put you in the same category as Debbie Reynolds.
Me too.
Yeah.
But you both tried to get Hollywood museums and a proper home for this stuff.
It's just amazing. Hollywood considers this stuff to be what they call recoverable assets. It's like a fax machine or a lamp. They don't care anything about it. Even the studios that have archives, they don't care about their history. They just want to have stuff that they can put on display in movie lobbies, or when they do the merch rollout, they want to make sure they have stuff to give away. It's just amazing how little they care about their history, which is great because a little Jew like me got in and got it all.
That was a Walt Disney film, A Little Jew Like Me. It was an animated.
That's a great one. Marvin Kaplan.
And
did the voice.
I was saying one of the dopiest collectibles someone just gave me was like a photo of like Lugosi and a little black piece of fabric on
that's supposedly from the Cape?
Yeah, that they said they took Bela Lugosi's Dracula cape and cut it up into thousands of little pieces. And I'm thinking, wouldn't the cape altogether be more valuable?
Well, how do you even authenticate those things, James?
Well, that's the question. I mean, how do you? But yeah, some people think that the breakup value of cutting something into 1,000 pieces is the way to go, which of course is a cultural crime. And, there's no way to document that crumb of a cape was worn by anybody. And maybe that's why they're cutting it up in the first place. But yeah, there are people who have in the past done that. Not so much now. The stuff is so high value, you wouldn't take a pair of scissors to anything.
What else do you have from Batman, as long as we're on the subject, because I don't want to lose that thread? You have a Riddler, Frank Gorshin's costume?
So, PropStore.com, we're having an auction on December 1st, and the Bat Shield is going to be in the auction. So, in the mid-'60s, they had one hand prop, and that was it. And if you broke it, they glued it back together. And there was one Bat Shield used in the first and second season. It says Bat Shield right across
with it.
The center. It's as good as it can get. The colors are vibrant. There's no cracks. We're thinking $400,000 to $600,000.
I'm working 3 jobs, Gilbert, and I can't afford a Bat Shield. Can I afford a Batarang, James? Okay.
No.
Anything from Twilight Zone or Out of Limits.
Okay, so the first and only piece I have ever seen from the Twilight Zone is, do you remember there was an episode called Eye of the Beholder, where there's the pretty woman and she comes out of the bandages and she's hoping that her... So in the same auction, December 1st, PropStore.com, we're selling the actual makeup that they wore in that episode. And that was done by a very well makeup artist, William Tuttle.
William Tuttle, very famous.
And so I think War of the Worlds, I think he did that right before the show.
Time Machine
it looks like
also?
a pig snout.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think you're right. So something like that is, I think it's in at $6,000 to $8,000. It was in the collection. You guys probably know the name.
We're familiar with Forey Ackerman.
Okay, now there's a lot of talk. Like, what happened to all of Forey Ackerman stuff?
Well, so Forey was this lovely, kind of innocent, beautiful guy. And he'd let people come over and they'd say, hey, man, can we take that Klingon disruptor? And I just want to make a mold of it and I'll bring you back the original. And Forey was, yeah, sure. So, of course, they would make a duplicate, paint it up real nice, and then give that back to Forey and keep the original.
Oh.
Oy, Gewalt. So, he was victimized.
Well, I know Kirk Hammett, our friend Kirk Hammett, bought some of those paintings, the Basil Gogos stuff. From Forey.
And I heard some people didn't even ask.
Priceless.
They would just
bomb stuff?
Yeah, they just slip it into their bag.
Yeah.
True story. I mean, he would just let you walk around. I mean, if you're in my warehouse, there's 15 cameras going. He would just let people walk around and he'd, go to answer a call or go to the bathroom and, 20 minutes later, that person and one of his pieces was out the door. So, yeah, that's a sad story, but he's, of course, well remembered and honored as a brilliant writer and also as an archivist. So the fact that this makeup also came through his collection is sort of value added.
Mm-hmm.
It's even more important.
And he actually had a Dracula cape, not a little shitty piece of black fabric.
What's the two questions? Two questions, James. Does the sale mean, for the most part, that you've given up the ghost on seeing any of this stuff in a museum?
No, it doesn't. In fact, I've underestimated how stupid Hollywood is. So I thought in 20 years of going to the heads of studios and the heads of theme parks and the heads of casinos, saying, "Look, guys, we have 70 years of history. Every one of these pieces is an attractor that will bring people through the door. Let's do it. I've done all the work. I'll let you use the stuff. We'll work it out. Let's do it." Nothing. I mean, virtually nothing. So the reason that we're selling some of the collection on December 1st at Prop Store is so we can fortify ourselves to fight the good fight for another few years.
Okay, so you're not waving the white flag. You're bolstering.
Fuck them. I'm not stopping until we get there.
Do you have the bolts on any of the Frankenstein necks?
Okay, that's a question I've never been asked. Congratulations.
He's original.
But I would want to have Fred Gwynne.
Sure, you're a Munsters guy,
that would be
too.
awesome. That it's so sad, but through his whole life, Fred Gwynne was ashamed of his performance on the Munsters. He thought it was so big and over the top that he couldn't watch it. He wouldn't sign photos, Herman Munster photos, until the very end of his life. But there's another one of those shows that's just pitch perfect.
Well, what did Jeff
today.
tell me on the phone? That in those days, I'm see if I get this right, that you could go in to one of the warehouses or one of the supply rooms where this shit was stored back in the day, and they would rent it to you?
Well, actually, we don't call it shit anymore. Now they're priceless artifacts.
Sorry, I apologize. But
somehow when Gilbert says "little piece of shit," it sounds better than when you say it.
Yeah. He has that license.
So you were saying, back in the day, if you went to Western Costume Company and you said, "I want to rent a gray jacket with long sleeves, 46 long," and they go, "Okay, the rack's over there." And if you looked in the pocket and one of them said Fred Gwynne, they didn't care. They'd rent it to you for $10 a week. That was the production rental. And if for some reason it didn't come back, you'd have to pay 10 weeks rental. So that $10 turned into $100. So I'd say, well, I'm telling you right now, this piece is going to get lost. Is it okay to rent it? And they said, "What? We don't care." So I would buy them for 10 times rental and buy these incredible pieces that they just didn't care. When I started writing Punch Up in the late 80s, early 90s, you'd go in a prop department and there's Jeannie's bottle and there's the door knockers from the Munster Mansion, and it meant nothing to them. This seems like science fiction now because we're so educated with American Pickers and Storage Wars and Antiques Roadshow. It seems like everybody would know this, but back then it was just stuff. It wasn't even barcoded. It was just stuff.
I can call it shit, but you can call it stuff. Well,
Exactly.
it's interesting, too, and you weren't trying to make a quick buck. You were coming, as we said, you were a fan, so you were coming from the right place with this stuff. You wanted it to be preserved. You didn't want it to deteriorate or disintegrate. You wanted to acquire it, sure, for your own jollies, but you also wanted to save it or rescue it in some cases.
You're absolutely right. Profits were never the driver. They still aren't. You know, what I valued were the shows and the characters and the iconography of all of it. And it's only in recent years, you know, I was just recently written up in Forbes magazine. Now I'm a fucking financial genius, guys, that I knew that Keith Partridge's pants would be worth money. I never came from any point of view other than it's history. It means something to me. It must mean something to other people. I'm going to save it. And I was considered completely fucking crazy for the first 25 years of doing it. Now I'm considered a financial genius.
Now, we've had another guest on this show who you probably know, Bob Burns.
Oh, I mean, he is also
and he's got some cool stuff.
Very. Oh, he does indeed. I wouldn't mind buying a few of those.
Do you know Bob?
I don't know him personally. I know him by reputation. He's obviously
we'll
very
put you
well
in touch. You should
respected
at least
and
go see his stuff.
Sure.
He's got the King Kong. He's got one of the armatures, the original armature, I think, for the King Kong model.
I know priceless. When I visited Fari Ackerman, they were rotted. The hair wasn't on them, or the skin wasn't on them, but the dinosaurs from King Kong, like the metal structure inside them.
Yeah, exactly right. So those pieces are all on like an articulated metal armature that would like bend at the wrist, the elbow, the knee, the foot. And so the outside was kind of, there was a molded bit of foam around it, and then they would put flocking or hair or fur or whatever. So that stuff was made to survive one day of shooting, not 70 years. So it is almost impossible to find a miniature from that era that still has any of the foam coating or the hair. I mean, that would be priceless if that surfaced. But just those armatures are very sculptural, and I have some very high up clients who just put them on the shelf as art. You know, the patina, they're a little bit rusted. It's beautiful art.
Well, we're going to stop right here. We've had so much fun with James Comisar. We're going to pick this up next week. So tune in next week for part 2 with James Comisar.
Colossal obsession.